maybe you did have a teddy or a doll that you slept with as a youngster. Maybe you just played with it. When did you stop sleeping with a teddy or a doll, perhaps? Did you ever stop sleeping with that source of comfort? Many adults still do sleep with their stuffed animals or their dolls. What's behind that? Psychology consultant and author Dr. Jo Lukens is with me now. Good morning.
Good morning, Susan.
So around 40% of adults still sleep with stuffed animals or dolls or teddies. Why do you think so many still choose to sleep with those stuffed animals and teddies?
I think like you, Susan, I was surprised when I saw those numbers because certainly when I flagged it with my friendship group over the weekend, I didn't get similar sort of percentages of numbers. But what we do know is that our plush companions often offer us a sense of security and, as Dorothy was just saying, the nostalgia that comes with that. So maybe it reminds us of happy times, the stress-free childhood moments. And we know that comfortable feeling and that sense of relaxation is obviously some of those things that really help us to have a restful night's sleep.
It is interesting because we were trying to consider some of the reasons that people might have and still have them as a source of comfort now, whether that be the texture of their fur or their skin if it's a doll, for example, or maybe the smell, even that ability to take us back to a less stressful time.
I think that's a very good synopsis of why that might be happening, because I think what it does is, if you listen to Dorothy say, I look at the little doll and it gives me a giggle, and so it does take us back to a time of comfort. And I think what we can find is that some of those other feelings, anxiety and loneliness, are reduced when we're spending times with anything that make us feel familiar and comfortable. So no surprises there that we see that coming through as part of the results of this research.
So there could be some emotional and psychological benefits, no doubt, from doing this. Maybe somebody's feeling a little bit lonely or a little bit stressed and now they're going, maybe I should go get a teddy.
Yeah, maybe I should. And it's interesting, I think, since you and I spoke about this last week and this particular research, my social media feed has been full of all sorts of dolls and toys, but particularly promoted for anxiety reduction. And I think that's something that we've seen particularly for children in schools. We see the weighted blankets and a whole range of things. So these comfort plush toys, it's not a surprise to see that they potentially have some sort of benefits for some people.
It's always interesting and how different people use these different things. So is there specific things or materials that we should be looking for, perhaps?
Generally, they tend to be those that are, like you said, they're soft, they're plush. And if we're looking at something for when we're sleeping, ideally they'd be hypoallergenic, which possibly if we're holding onto a teddy from 60 years ago, that may not quite be how they were making them back then. We do know that the weighted plush toys are very popular. And the key is for people to have something that is significant to them or has some meaning for them if that's something that they want to do.
Can it really make a difference in your sleep quality, do you think?
I don't know that it's the toy per se, but I think what it is, it's the sense of comfort and the feeling that it generates. And when we feel, no surprises, rested and relaxed and comfortable, that's what sets us up well for sleep. I know there's some people who talk about the fact that they sleep with an extra pillow and they might bring that into their body because it makes their body positioning more comfortable. And I think a stuffed toy potentially can do something very similar. So I wouldn't say necessarily that it's specifically the toy, but it's the feelings that it creates, and it's those feelings then that help to assist us to have that healthier sleep routine.
Do you think that some people might not feel confident to admit that they still sleep with a toy or a stuffed animal?
I'm very confident that there are many adults who won't, particularly when I did my own little poll on the weekend and no one was telling me about it. But so there's no doubt there's some stigma attached to it because toys are generally considered to be children's possessions, I guess, in some ways. But I guess I've seen increasingly with athletes even that I've worked with in their 20s and 30s that might travel with a toy and they're very comfortable to be on the team bus or whatever it is, and that's part of who they are. I think probably like most things, stigma is reducing in all areas, which is probably a good thing for people. But there are no doubt there are some people who would be very amused or bemused perhaps by this research, maybe something that they haven't considered before.
Are there any health concerns that people should be keeping in mind?
Well, let's keep Teddy clean. So a regular wash of the stuffed animals. If you suffer from allergies, asthma, those sorts of things are probably things that are, and most of those modern toys are machine washable. So we probably need to think about that. And I guess the only other thing it's always important to note is that what we're talking about here is adults and anyone sleeping with toys and things when they're younger. And of course, there's all the advice about particularly babies and not having things in the cots and so forth. So obviously always prioritising those safety messages is going to be incredibly important before we look at something like this as something that we might do.
Are you going teddy bear shopping after this, Dr. Jo?
I've got a collection of teddy bears at home, and including the ones from when my sons were younger, so we have a wide collection, so I probably don't need to add any more into them.
No.
Yeah, but they are lovely and they do bring about beautiful memories.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Thank you very much for joining me this morning, Dr. Jo Lucan, psychology consultant and author. Thank you very much for your time.
Good to chat with you.
Thanks so much for being with me today and sharing about your teddies.